What's up, guys? Noted investor here. Back finally. I am way overdue for a video update. I was back from travel yesterday and didn't have a lot of a voice left, and I was exhausted, to say the truth. But back to the charts here, fully rested, recovered, and watching some of the action here today. And so I'm going to cover Bitcoin. I'm going to cover some of the big names, really, but mostly just talk primarily BTC, because that's going to lead a lot of the market direction here over the next couple of days. And we are still a few days away from the close of this weekly bar, so I will take a big picture approach as well as some near-term pattern that I'm seeing on the short-term time frames that may make for a pretty decent trade here over the next day or two. So that's what I'm going to be looking for, and I just wanted to share you some thoughts with the market overall with you guys. So the last 2 weeks, no doubt, has been the slow grind down. It's been very exhausting in a lot of ways, very painful, especially because there was a lot of hype going into consensus. And as is often the case with these markets, whatever everyone expects to happen, usually the opposite tends to happen. And we've seen the market on May 5th peaked out around $470 billion and has just kind of been grinding its way lower. Here we are around $366 billion. So we've seen just a little over 20% retracement here on this pullback, and it's been across the board. The BTC dominance has gone up, but not a lot. It's up to about 37%. And so the smaller cap names have certainly lost some ground versus Bitcoin, and that's been offset by some other names, such as Ethereum has actually been holding up pretty well versus BTC. So we'll look at the chart there. But all in all, this pullback continues, and many are asking, is the bear market back? Was this rally off of the lows we saw in April? Was that just a bounce, and here we are pulling back? Are we going to retrace all the way back to the bottom? And so that's a lot of the concern out there. For now, I believe this is just a normal pullback, a normal dip in the big scheme of things, but there are some key levels to be watching, and I will certainly go with the flow here. I'm not going to be a maximalist in any one direction. If we start to breach certain support levels, then absolutely I will respond and go accordingly and change my mind on some of that as well. So, but for now, this is a pullback in the longer term perspective, in my opinion. But let's take a look at the charts here. So looking at BTC, first the daily chart. This is Bitcoin on daily on Bitstamp, and you can see here it's been very clear ever since we breached below this 10 EMA on May 7th. We've not been able to get back above it on a closing basis. The MACD also crossed over here. It's not shown in the charts, but we crossed over there, and we started to lose a lot of momentum, failing the breakout above 10K. And so once we started to see that, it's just kind of been this slow trickle. We saw a pretty big pullback, oversold bounce, but that bounce failed right into that exponential 10 EMA on the daily chart, and here we are pulling back again. And we've seen 4 red days in a row. The current bar still has quite some time left in it, so it could go either way. It wouldn't take a whole lot to stay in the green here, so I'm looking for that to remain green today. But again, this is a small range at this point. We are due for a little bit of a bounce, but volume has been receding here on these last couple of selling days, which is good news. RSI on the daily is also holding above or right around that 40 mark, so that's good. But we are at a little bit of a junction here. We are at what I call a must-hold level on this big pullback. So I've been talking about the retracement level on this entire move. And so if you look at the entire move that started on this bar here on April 12th and take that up to the highs that we saw here just below that 10K. And so the pullback, the first level that I was watching was at 382. We sliced right through that, broke support, that became resistance. And here we are pulling back. The next level down is the 618, which is basically right around 8K. We've seen prices bounce in and around that zone here over the last day. And then on a price basis level, the must-hold level, at least on a closing basis, is around that $7,800 mark that I've been talking about. This is a key support zone that we want to see held if this longer-term uptrend that started here in middle of April is to remain in place, because if it does, this would establish a very nice higher low and a place of support at some key support areas that would make sense to see a bounce from there. and that's what I'm going to be looking for. So this is a must hold. If we break below, there's not a lot of support, because after that it's just this single bar, this single candle, which wouldn't lend itself to be a lot of support. This could be considered support down here around that 7,400, but if the momentum accelerated to the downside, we could likely see a retest of this most recent low in April. So not looking for that now. I'm leaning bullish still, looking for this support to hold. After this long pullback, it would make sense to see a bounce at least. So we could see a bounce and then maybe a retest of this support, and we'll have to go from there. So zooming in, or let me go to the weekly chart first, because a lot of people have been asking me, what do you think about the weekly? Has it turned the picture? And the weekly continues to really tighten up here. We have hit a high right there, right, basically just shy of 10K, and then 2 weeks of pullback. Now this current bar still has about 2.5 days left in it, so there's still a lot of time. But for this picture to really start turning bullish, we need to see this weekly get back above this moving average and close above last week's low. That's going to be around 8,800, 8,900. So if we can close above that, this would help turn this weekly bar into a little bit of a support bar, and would lend itself to a strong higher low on the weekly as well. But you know, that's only 2 days left in this. There's still a lot of time, so anything can happen between now and then. But going from 8,100 to 8,900 would not be out of the realm of possibility in this market. So that could happen. But for now, time is kind of running out on this weekly, and if it ends looking like this, then next week we'll be looking to see if this support level holds. But so for now it's neutral, but going into the end of the week, we need to see this thing turn into a support bar, and ideally turn green by getting back above that $8,700 mark. In the near term though, looking at the 4-hour charts, I am leaning bullish in the short term, looking to do some positioning here. And here's what I'm seeing here. So I've been talking about this bullish divergence we continue to see on the 4-hour charts. So you can see the RSI here continues to rise as prices have trickled lower. So we had that first low on the 12th, so earlier this week, and the RSI got very oversold on this 4-hour chart, taking it all the way down to around 20. And then we saw some really choppy action. Looked like we were turning the corner, and then we started pulling back again, made a new low here a couple of times, but the RSI has not made a new low. So in the big picture, that's very positive. That's what you want to see as the sellers start to look like they're getting a little exhausted here. But no doubt we're still in this broader downtrend that has been in place for the last couple of weeks here. So this is a key resistance area to be watching in the big picture. Even if we do bounce, that's going to be the first test. Can we break that broader downtrend that's been in place? Taking a closer look, a little bit more near term, what I'm watching here, which is keeping me leaning bullish here in the near term, is this falling wedge pattern that I'm starting to identify here on the 4-hour chart. So you can see here over the last couple of days, this pattern is starting to get a little bit narrow, and it's ideal that it's getting narrow going into this key support zone. And so it tells me that we're starting to see a little bit of support coming in, some accumulation showing up. The sellers are getting a little exhausted. Buyers are stepping in sooner. And so a close above this wedge here would be very positive, especially if it came in with some volume. Technical target on this pattern here, if you do a measured move, takes you to around 8,800, which lines up well with this resistance point. And then you're going to see some resistance going into 8,600. So that's going to really be the target, the first target on a move out of this pattern if we see a breakout. Now we are right at the upper trend line, so it wouldn't be surprising to see another little dip. Perhaps we see a dip into that support zone and then the breakout. But that's what I'm going to be looking for here today, kind of looking at this pattern setting up. It's looking pretty attractive, and so I'm just going to be waiting patiently for this to play out. But that's the near-term pattern. This is a bullish falling wedge pattern. They tend to break out to the upside. How high we bounce, do we clear resistance? That's going to be the next test. Does it mean 7,800 held? A lot of it is just going to depend. One, what happens when we hit resistance here? Do we pull back, bounce, make a higher low, and then go from there? That would confirm a nice double bottom. So it's going to depend, and I'm going to just take it one day at a time and be patient. For now, there is some near-term trading to be made. There's a few names that are looking pretty good. QuantStamp's looking like it's setting up here. Decred has remained strong. Binance, on some news of referral fees and benefits there, has really driven up that name, but that's really broken out of a very strong equilibrium pattern on the BTC chart that I've been watching here. And so I was watching this pattern here play out over the daily. You can see how tight this was really getting. I was looking for a close above that 16,000 Satoshi level, and it just blew right through that on announcement. Tons of volume coming in. So I'm looking for some new highs on Binance versus BTC here. It does need to cool off a little bit. It's been very volatile today, tons of volume, but this is looking very good. That was a solid breakout. And so definitely watching Binance here. Looking at QuantStamp. Now this was announced as a little bit of a pick on one of the pump newsletters, but nonetheless the chart is looking pretty good here. And so you look at the daily chart, it's really been setting up, a lot of accumulation showing up. So very strong looking chart all around if BTC can start to turn around here. Looking at Ethereum has been holding up relatively well versus Bitcoin. So let me go to it on the Binance chart and look at that daily chart. I mean, just continues to be one of the stronger looking charts out there versus BTC. Has just been stair stepping its way higher. But I did point out in my last video there is a little bit of a divergence showing up on the RSI. It feels like it might be losing some steam, but until the broader trend changes, you got to give the trend the benefit of the doubt. Some of this is also associated with the fact that the market has just kind of been in a sideways action versus a strong uptrend, so it's natural to see the RSI kind of pull in a little bit. Volume here has been lightening up a little bit too, which is good all around because there hasn't been a ton of selling here near the highs. So definitely keep an eye on Ethereum here. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Just wanted to bring that quick update on the markets. Keep an eye on BTC and look out for that falling wedge pattern. If we can break higher today, that's going to be the first step in potentially turning around this downtrend that we've been in. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, take care, everybody.